wonder who'd be calling me. Didn't even recognize that number. Hello, this is the time traveling gamer Planetary. You've reached the Time Travelers HQ. Who's this?
Hey Planetary, this is John from CyberCom Gaming. Hope you're keeping safe. Hey look, I know this is kind of random, but word around the retro gaming community is that you're heading back in time and you're taking a look at the Time Crisis series. Now, you know how we do here at CyberCom Gaming with that retro era, and I was kind of hoping to join you back on this journey.
Ah, John from CyberCom Gaming. It's good hearing from you, my good sir. Yes, I'm actually traveling safe throughout time. Well... Oh, shit! Almost. It's not random at all, my good sir. Yes, I'm traveling back through time to look at the Time Crisis series. And I've been looking for someone that shares the same love and knowledge of the series. So what do you say? You game for this journey, John?
Yep, sounds good, man. Let's do it.
Alright. Time traveling jump in 3, 2, 1. Let's go! V.S.S.E. have sent out 2 of their best time-traveling agents throughout time and space to avert the crisis. Planetaryashes and CyberCom Gaming. In Time Crisis. 1995, the year I was born to time travel, the PlayStation being on the rise of beating the Nintendo and Sega with their first 3D card destruction, Twisted Metal, Namco's sequel of their well-known beat-up game Tekken 2, with its polygonal graphics and tanking fight controls, Point Blank, a fun light gun minigame to test your accuracy, then there's... Time Crisis, developed and published by Namco.
Released on arcades in 1995, followed by a home console release on the PS1 in 97, the first Time Crisis immediately raised the bar for light gun games in several ways. The most obvious innovation was the introduction of a cover system. That's right, Time Crisis arcade cabinets were equipped with a nifty foot pedal which enabled players to leap out of cover.
Which Namco planted another game mechanic as a countermeasure to prevent the players from relying on the covering system, the timer. The timer will force the player to be quick-witted with their accuracy to prevent losing time while going through each section of the 3 areas per stage.
After the huge success of Time Crisis, Namco has made 4 main installments and 3 spin-offs. But we're looking at the 5 main ones and their advancements. New mechanics that definitely made the Time Crisis as what it is in the present day.
About 2 years after Time Crisis, Namco with the producer of Takashi Sano have made Time Crisis 2, utilizing the Namco System 23 arcade board in 1997, but then was later ported to the PlayStation 2 in 2001 with enhanced graphics and rocking soundtrack, and new mechanics with some adjustments with the current mechanics. With a new UI system called the Crisis Flash, a red reticle to indicate the player whether or not the enemy will take a critical shot towards the player, which became a massive improvement from Time Crisis and became the main staple for the other 3 installments. Plus, one more mechanic is the co-op feature, where both you and your friend can play together all 3 areas together, shooting your way through the army and bosses, or you can play by yourself with an AI, which, trust me, it's fun to play with mates on arcades, which add another coating for the player. If they end up shooting your teammate by accident, you'll be deducted points, which makes the player to be more accurate with their shots. A final adjustment with the mechanic is the timer. Since the timer at Time Crisis 1 becomes an instant game over once the timer hits 0, which requires you to put more tokens in. Namco updated the timer to keep a constant flow when the timer hits 0. Instead of an instant game over, you will lose a life and the timer will reset to 40. Speaking of resetting, The timer stops and resets after finishing a section of the area. Another major update for Time Crisis 2, where Time Crisis keeps the timer running going through sections to section, which was a minor issue for newcomers, but a massive challenge for veterans. In 2001, when Time Crisis 2 was ported over to the PlayStation, they gave this game a massive upgrade with the graphics and soundtrack. But there was one issue though. You can play co-op with your mates, but the issue is they put the two screens into one game, which causes a massive screen crunch and difficulty to aim in your own section of the screen. Plus the game and the cutscene duplicates, which is a slight problem. But if you have two TVs, two PlayStation 2s and two copies of Time Crisis 2 with a LAN cable, then you'll be able to play the game as it's meant to be. An arcade feel at home. In 2002, Namco made another stellar installment under a different director and producer, with the director Takashi Sakatsuwa, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, and the producer Hajime Nakatana, Time Crisis 3 for the arcade, incorporating another new game mechanic. The weapon system, with 3 more guns to add to your arsenal, with a machine gun holding to 200 rounds, a shotgun with 50 rounds, and a grenade launcher holding up to 5 rounds. But those guns are single use and no reloads, no anything. The only way to replenish ammo is by shooting the yellow AIs 3 times to replenish your ammo, which continues on for 2 more installments, which later was released for the PlayStation 2 in 2003.
It won't be until 2006 when Namco really stepped it up a notch with its innovative light gun series. Time Crisis 4 released in 2006 in arcades and 2007 on the PS3, which added a new movement system originally introduced in the spin-off game Time Crisis Project Titan.
2015, the last installment of the Time Crisis series, being an arcade exclusive under new producer, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, Nahiro Nishimura, and director Shogo Atuo, comes Time Crisis 5, only for the arcades and not seeing the light of day, being ported over to any consoles. With it being made with the Unreal Engine 4, with the awesome graphics and new animation, but we'll get into that later. But the last adjustment was added for the covering system. Instead of covering behind one, you can switch covers to flank the enemy, which means the AI coding needed to be updated to be self-aware of where the players can be in the level environments, so both the players and the AIs will be on their toes to see who can get the first shot in. Alright John, no more fun facts. Let's get in some brass tacks. You ready for the story?
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going through the whole lot of the storyline from the beginning with the one-man army Richard Miller all the way to the most recent V.S.S.E agents Luke O'Neill and Mark Godart. Now, before we go into details of the Time Crisis series stories, massive spoiler coming. If you don't want to hear the timeline and want to play the series and experience the story yourself, then I recommend you skip to this timeline here. I'll give you 5 seconds. Right, can't say I didn't warn ya. In 1995, the V.S.S.E, an international protection agency, helps a Sicarian opposition leader, William McPherson, engineer a coup that will overthrow an century-old authoritarian regime. Shudo Garo, the last survivor of the regime, plots to restore the order with launching a series of assassinations that destabilize the nation.
As a finishing touch and a way to rule the nation, Shirudo captures McPherson's daughter Rachel as prisoner. McPherson contacts the V.S.S.E, for which the V.S.S.E sends out Richard Miller to infiltrate the castle to save Rachel, while shooting his way through the Imperial Army and taking out Shirudo's highest ranking assassin at the helipad with V.S.S.E's arch nemesis, Wild Dog.
After a heart-pumping action, Wild Dog blows himself up with a pocket explosive device and presumed dead. Yes, I'm using that word loosely here. And Richard and Rachel hops on the helicopter and made their way back to the V.S.S.E safe and sound.
Danger! Action!
In 1997, the industry that goes by the name of Neodyne announced the plans for a program called Starline Network of 64 satellites orbiting around the world that will unify communications around the continent. However, the V.S.S.E. sent out Christy Ryan to Neodyne Industry to revolve her intel on Neodyne, which leads to Christy to discover something crucial. Neodyne is planning to launch a nuclear satellite to orbit and sell it to the highest bidder. While trying to escape with the suitcase with incriminating data, she's been exposed by Jackoff and his mercenaries. By the time Christy made it to the safe house, she contacted V.S.S.E. to require a safe escort back to the HQ. Jackoff and his goons reached to Christy first and ready to take her back to Neodyne Industries. Two new V.S.S.E. agents, Richard Miller and Robert Baxter, were right behind them. Richard and Robert now go through the city, dealing with Jackoff and his goons, all the way to the boat tier with a fast-paced boat chase scene leading to Jackoff to the boathouse. Well, goddamn. After retrieving the suitcase and learning the current location, they made their way to the forest to catch a train. Finding their way through the train depot and the train to reach to the satellite, but they were cut off short by Buff Bryant. John, do you think it's possible for someone to lift a 2,500 kilogram of a missile?
Yeah man, of course.
You'd have thought. Anyway, once Bryant is dealt with him shooting his own chopper down and ramming itself into a bridge, Richard and Robert grabs a helicopter and made their way to Neodyne Industries, shooting their way through the remaining mercenaries and of course the returning from the grave, Wild Dog, packing an augmented machine gun, and midway through the battle, Ernesto Diaz jumps in, packing a rocket launcher. After taking several hits, Diaz takes Christy as hostage and makes his way to the launch, while Wild Dog, taking the full brunt of the two agents, down on his luck, Wild Dog blows up again. Now to the launch platform to stop Diaz and save Christy. Diaz throws Christy off the platform as a last-ditch effort to lose Richard and Robert. The agents saved Christy and made their way to the final battle with Diaz and the prototype of the nuclear device. Couple shots in Ernesto Diaz, and the satellite takes out the rocket sequence and sends the industries to a massive explosion, while rising from the water to get transportation by the helicopter back to the V.S.S.E. HQ as heroes.
For Time Crisis 3, the storyline centers around the V.S.S.E., for which has been alerted of a powerful man trying to take over the innocent country, Locarno. To prevent an invasion, he takes multiple hostages and silences threats. Instead of sending in the troops, the V.S.S.E. sends in two of their best agents, Alan Dunaway and Wesley Lampert. They are each armed with 4 guns, a handgun, machine gun, shotgun, and a grenade launcher.
Going through the beach to the abandoned ship, avoiding getting shredded and bombed by the gunship, controlled by the Air Force leader, Colonel Victor Zahn. While escaping the abandoned ship while it was capsizing, Alice Winston, Daniel's sister, coming in hot with an SUV to save Alan and Wesley, while having a road-to-air shootout against Victor and his gunship. Traveling to the small market village, the forest, and on the train, which later being stopped by a group of assassins called Zot's Assassin Squad, run by the head assassins Randy Garrett, ambushing Wesley and Alan from getting any further to the Army HQ of Locarno, sending Randy off to the bridge alongside the containers. Have a nice death!
Alan, Wesley, and Alicia made their way to the headquarters to save Alicia's brother and to stop the missile. While on the way through, both Alan and Wesley face off with Wild Dog. The newcomer Wildfang has an augmented leg that can pack a punch, kicking objects at maximum velocity towards Alan and Wesley, but eventually after a heart-pounding shootout, both Wild Dog and Fang go out with a bang.
Only person who's left is General Zot, making his way to the launch sequence and setting one half of the HQ going into flames. Alan and Wesley are up for the final showdown with General Zot and his remaining army, tanks, tanks? And rocket launchers. One final shot and General Zot is down and out, but the missiles are still in process of being launched. Using their quick thinking, Both of them grab a rocket launcher each and aim for the debris to stop the missile, and blew up the HQ up, while the rebel army waits far from the HQ, waiting for Alan and Wesley to emerge from the HQ without a single scratch. How? How does that work? They were in the middle of the HQ. Like, goddamn. Anyway, both Alan, Wesley, and the rebel army have saved and returned to Locarno as heroes.
Continue. Back on your feet. Don't give up. Handgun.
Heading off to California, where both intelligence officials, the United States Armed Force, or USAF for short from here on out, and the paramilitary V.S.S.E organization learn about a top secret weapon targeted for terrorist smuggling. Their plot. USAF sends out their best soldiers, William Rush, to infiltrate the pier to gather intelligence of the top secret weapon and find the enemy already gathered the top secret weapon under the project name Terabyte.
After being told by Elizabeth Conway about information leak incident at the airport, Rush goes to the airport to help two V.S.S.E agents, Giorgio Bruno and Ivan Bernard, has been sent to that location to stop weapons trade. After leaving the airport, chasing down a semi-truck with a package by mowing down the enemy squad with a heavy-duty machine gun, rocket launcher and sniper rifle to shoot the tires out.
While approaching the semi-truck to secure the secret weapon, Marcus Black prevented the three with a heavy-duty anti-tank rifle with one hand. I don't know about you, John, but aren't those rifles heavy as hell? Man, what's up with this series with badass characters holding weapons that are twice as heavy? Anyway, moving on. After finishing Marcus Black and a squad of foot soldiers, Rush, Gregorio, and Evan look over the soldiers, realizing that they were once soldiers of the US Army, with dog tags on each soldier, which means they are not terrorists, they are rogue soldiers taking orders from someone else. Now realizing those soldiers were a special squad, the Biological Weapons Specialists, Operation Units, aka the Hamlin Battalion. The three fly their way to Wyoming to a secluded bioweapon research laboratory, but being too late as the battalion has taken the bioweapon, leaving a big brute wielding a machine gun, Jack Marvers. While Rush going toe to toe and getting slammed, bashed and shocked. Seriously dude, how are you still standing? Rush delivers the final uppercut to Jack. The three finally realize that the battalion is now attacking the Buckley Air Force Base near Owaro, Colorado. Riding a helicopter to the base, mow down more enemy squads and helping Rush with the army push towards the rogue squads. While Rush made it inside to get to the control center, Rush comes across Wildfang, while Gregorio and Evan are up against Wild Dog. Both Wild Dog and Fang lost to Rush, Gregorio and Evan and made their way towards the control center.
Now going up against the final battalion and the creator of Terabyte, Colonel Gregory Burroughs, who hijacked the nuclear-armed UCAVs to destroy the United States in retaliation for poor treatment received from the army. After one last shootout from the ground to a human pyramid, Gregory has been stopped. By the time Giorgio and Evan try to reach the control center, with one last push and rush, Giorgio and Evan manage to cancel the bombing and the UCAVs and become heroes of the United States.
3 months prior to the event of the game, a V.S.S.E auditor was murdered. The briefcase contains information of the traitor within the V.S.S.E ranks, but due to the auditor being murdered, the briefcase has never returned to the hands of the V.S.S.E for information retrieval. The V.S.S.E new agents, Luke O'Neill and Mark Godart, are sent to retrieve the briefcase with V.S.S.E veteran Robert Baxter as officer in charge of the mission of the briefcase retrieval, with helping support with Catherine Ritchie serves as the agent's air support. It's suspected that Wild Dog has retrieved the auditor briefcase hours after auditor was murdered.
Rumors about the traitor selling the intel to the highest bidder even before the events of the game. The internal auditor was tasked with trailing the traitor as well. Due to the V.S.S.E intel inquiring eyes-only clearance, the briefcase has become a serious coin for all participants involved.
Luke and Mark fought Wild Dog throughout the freeway, but in spite of their victory, Wild Dog ejected the briefcase out of the agent's reach. But with quick thinking, Robert shot the briefcase with a tracking device before Wild Dog blowing up for the 4th time. Wait, hold up, 4th time? More like 5th time. After surviving the explosion, Luke, Mark, Robert and Catherine makes their way to the forest near Wild Dog's factory, where the tracker was last working, which leaves Luke and Mark questioning Robert. Why did Wild Dog shoot the briefcase en route to the jungle? Which leads Robert to say this line, "I wasn't shooting that thing for target practice."
Going through the forest, using snipers to take out the lookout post and wreaking havoc on the factory, they reach the storage where they meet another V.S.S.E veteran, Keith Martin, attempting to crack the briefcase lock to find out intel of the traitor within the V.S.S.E ranks. This leads to Robert and Keith to a massive fight with Luke and Mark playing support to stop Keith. During the fight, Keith revealed the auditor's name as being Christy Ryan, the field agent in Time Crisis 2, which Keith fell in love with.
After Keith was defeated, Keith managed to open the briefcase to find out who's the traitor within the V.S.S.E ranking, showing Luke and Mark who it is. Being shocked and stunned with Keith's quick reaction deflecting 2 incoming bullets with knives, the traitor is revealed to be Robert Baxter. Luke and Mark being shocked that Robert was using them all along to erase everything the V.S.S.E did throughout the year. While the 3 were about to give chase to Robert, Robert sprung a trapdoor to send Keith, Luke and Mark to the caverns with enemy squad looking dazed like zombies, with Keith informing Catherine Ritchie that the traitor is Robert. Keith informed her to look over the incident that happened 3 years ago.
Reaching to the end of the cave, they are forced to fight Wild Fangs, while there's some more zombie-induced soldiers. After beating Fang in 2 phases, Wild Fang goes out with a bang, taking the caverns with him, while the 3 escaped without a problem.
Now it's just Luke, Mark, Keith and Robert with a robot suit, the fight that ends all fights. Friends, now foe. Mentor becomes villain, veteran agent becoming the enemy of the state. Keith, Luke and Mark fight Robert to stop him spreading the zombie virus. No, not that virus. After going through 2 phases of Robert and the robot, Robert was about ready to launch the missile, but within the last second reaction, Catherine Ritchie comes in hot with the helicopter suicide bomb to take the missile with her to the ocean, leaving Robert a man with nothing to lose. Shooting him off the aircraft, the mission becomes a success. Jumping off the aircraft to safety in the ocean, seeing Catherine Ritchie in one piece. They wait for rescue and went back home as heroes. Holy smokes! Talk about a cluster story here, with the awesome arc to it, with it starting off with the one-man army, Richard Miller saving the president's daughter, to Luke, Mark taking down Robert Baxter. This is one planned out storyline without a doubt. What do you think, John?
Here, use this.
To add further to the immersion, the game's proprietary gun, the Gun Con, had a mechanical kick every time you pulled the trigger, adding to the intensity of the game's action. The 3-4 area stages of Time Crisis feels very small compared to modern games. However, every single one of them was an experience worthy of an adrenaline-fueled action movie. While the movement was still on rails, as was customary with light gun games for the point, you're always propelled in some death-defying scene.
Only main issue of the first installment, which later installment caught on and made it easy, was the timer. See, whenever you finish the section of the area, the timer continues on, especially through breaks of going to the next cover. And once that timer hits 0, it's an instant game over, which means it's time to add more tokens to continue on. Let's let the veterans of the Time Crisis series take over this one.
Time Crisis 2 was the first game in the series to feature a second player. Added a second connected cabinet complete with its own upgraded Gun Con 2 and a foot pedal. It wasn't enough to just slap the second player into the game and call it a day. However, each player at certain points throughout the game's 3 area stages take their own route and provide cover with different angles at times,
which became a staple for 3 more installments, keeping the co-op feature either playing with mates or with an AI. Why would you want to do that when you can play with your mates? But in this game, there were few adjustments to the gameplay mechanics, which was the timer, which became a huge help for newcomers to Time Crisis series. After finishing a section of the area, the timer will reset and stop till you reach to the next cover. And other than game over, you lose health to keep the momentum going.
In the third installment in the Time Crisis series, we'll be the first to see deviation between the arcade version and its home console counterpart. Both games featured the same two-player action across 3 area stages, each with a selection of 4 different weapons: the classic handgun, machine gun, shotgun, and grenade launcher. The PS2 version, released simultaneously with the arcade one in 2002, featured an extra side story where you were equipped with a sniper rifle during certain scenes.
This is also where they introduce the health system. Yes, the health system, because most of the soldiers that you'll be fighting your way through takes more than one bullet to take them out, but very helpful to indicate how much health that each bosses you'll be going up against in this game, with blue indicating how many stacks of lives the boss has, and the green life bar indicating of their last leg, which continues on for the last 2 of the series.
Time Crisis 4 added a new movement system originally introduced in the spin-off game, Time Crisis Project Titan. The system enabled you to direct your movement based on where you were pointing your light gun. This worked both for cover and for shooting, and added a whole new visceral dimension to an already action-packed formula. The final entry to the series was also the first to make use of the popular Unreal Engine. It was also the entry that didn't make it to consoles, and probably for good reason. This was the definitive edition of the Time Crisis experience, featuring 2 foot pedals and a weapon changing button. The foot pedals took the multi-angle gameplay of the last few entries to new heights by enabling you to pick the angles from which you were attacking enemies. This way, armored and shielded enemies could be taken on faster without needing to wait for them to lower their defenses. Weapon changing also made the game feel closer than ever with its first-person shooter competitors. Time Crisis 5 would also see the largest selection of stages in the series, with up to 6 stages, after the upgraded Mastermind edition of the game was released in August 2015, 6 months post initial release. Looking at this game series as a whole, the classic arcade shooter delivered some of the best soundtracks, especially with the relentless urgency of Kazuhiro Nakamura's score. For the first 2 games, just made shooting the bad guys with a plastic replica firearm feel like your own personal action movie. I also love Time Crisis 4's music score, perhaps my favorite in the entire series, especially the last 4 tracks. The final boss theme, the first and second ending themes, and the name entry screen, which were all fantastic musical finales.
I definitely have to agree with you there, my good sir. When it comes to soundtrack, Namco and the composer Kazuhiro really nailed it on the head, with the heart-pumping and adrenaline soundtrack when going through certain locations with different areas. But the boss theme, with my favorite being Jackal from Time Crisis 2, Dog and Fang, and the showdown in Time Crisis 3, and many more soundtracks down the list. Like, have a listen to those soundtracks and tell me what you think. As for voice acting, where do I begin throughout the series? There's some moments that it does feel a bit off with Time Crisis 1. They may have that tone of anger like Wild Dog in the final fight on the rooftops in Time Crisis 1, but it doesn't pack the punch or intimidation towards the player. As for Time Crisis 2, they managed to bring in some awesome voice acting, with Jakov having that mafia lackey's voice, with him sporting a suit. He really suits being the first boss to deal with, and the voice acting has improved onwards with some help in Time Crisis 4 with Chris Sabat. Yes, that Sabat, the voice of All Might, Piccolo and Vegeta, and helping hand with Vic Mignogna as Edward Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist and Crow from Ruby, which I gotta say, that's totally caught me off guard.
When looking back at the graphics for the first and second Time Crisis, for me, they definitely stayed true to that retro feel and look, which added to that charm. Time Crisis 3, however, now, this title really stepped it up from Time Crisis 2, with a lot more detail placed into the environments and animations. The enemy models also look way better with more liveliness and way more detail.
For me, I like how they took a massive jump from using polygon graphics for the arcades to using more smooth character design, with Time Crisis 2 being the first to take that jump, which later using the same graphics for Time Crisis 3, but also looking at Time Crisis 5 with the slick graphics with Namco using the Unreal Engine 4, which they also used it for the latest Tekken series. Oh, that can wait. Oh, that can definitely wait. Made Time Crisis 5 look more realistic.
I'll always have a deep love for the Time Crisis series, especially Time Crisis 2, when I'd play this game at the arcades. Just so nostalgic, man. This travel back in time was epic. Now, this is a definition. I still remember how I'd play this game with friends, have a handful of coins, the sound of foot pedals as you frantically duck gunshots, and that sense of accomplishment as you and your mate would progress through the stages. To me, very few gaming experiences would ever match the bustling feels of the arcades, and the Time Crisis series always made that experience even better.
As for me, since I got the Time Crisis collection at home, I'm happy to play them on the PS2 or PS3, but without a doubt, whenever I see them on the arcade, I won't hesitate to put some tokens or tap a card to play any of the Time Crisis series in the arcades, especially Time Crisis 5. This game series is a total must to play through. But best starting off with Time Crisis 2 with a mate to get a proper feel of the heart-pumping action that this game got in store for you.
No matter where you stand on the idea of light gun games today, it's definitely a lost art. Despite its absence today, Time Crisis stands as one of the series that attempted to take the gun in your hand formula to a whole new level, placing itself at the pinnacle of classic gaming.
Which I gotta say, this is a rarity of genre that future games may implement it in their own games, with the foretold comedy VR shooter Robo Recall and many games that may have inspired ideas from the awesome Time Crisis series. But hopefully in the future we might see a HD remake for future consoles for us old school veterans like ourselves that would love to revisit the series. No, seriously Namco, get on to making the remake of Time Crisis series, please! Well, that's all we got, my fellow time travelers. We've gone through the whole lot, from start to finish, for this retrospective for this episode of Planetary's Throwback. And thank you CyberCom Gaming for being part of the journey for the Time Crisis series.
Thanks for having me, Planetary. This throwback was epic, and reliving some of these key gaming moments was definitely well worth the trip.
Now, before I send you back to the present day, why not drop your channel prop here so the time travelers know where to find you?
Awesome stuff. Look, if you've got a keen interest into all things gaming, consider heading over to CyberCom Gaming. This is a place where all gamers, young and old and new school, can come together and discuss and share some key gaming moments. We love to discuss and take a look at classic titles with our Retro Rewind series, look at some gaming comparisons with our V.S.S.E series, and share some gaming history. This is a variety gaming channel, and we recently introduced a brand new segment, CyberCom Fast Forward, where we'll be looking at potential future titles and what we would love to see explored.
Awesome sauce. Well, hopefully you have a safe trip back to the present day, John, and who knows, we may cross timelines again for another game to look at. Definitely go check him out, ladies and gentlemen, to look at the awesome variety of gaming episodes he's got on his channel. But thank you for being part of the journey, ladies and gentlemen, of the Time Crisis Retrospective. Big massive thanks to John from CyberCom Gaming for the massive help of joining the journey looking at this awesome series. Be sure you go check him out by going to the link in the description or by clicking on the channel at the end screen to see what he does for his channel. Also, feel free to leave a like and comment down below telling us your experience with the Time Crisis series. But if you're a new time traveler here, then feel free to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can keep yourself up to date of where and when I may be traveling to next time for another episode. But until then, this is Planetary signing off, and I hope you enjoy your time traveling journey, one game at a time. Ta-ta!